We were chatting once, and one of her former students had been a instructor of mine at my undergraduate institution. He was like an instructor, lecturer, whatever, adjunct, you'd say in American parlance. And the comment she made to me was that it was such a shame that he'd never gotten a job. It was such a shame. Like, I remember her saying those words. It was such a shame. But like, she was talking to me, somebody who had literally been in 2 or 3 different classes of his, like obviously he was getting paid for that. But we both understood what she meant, which was that he'd never gotten a tenure track position.
Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor, the podcast. I'm your host, Paulina. In 2019, I was a political science professor who was fed up with the stress and hostility of academia, not to mention the low pay. I left my tenure-track job and went from barely surviving to thriving as a freelance academic editor. Today, I own Acadia Editing Services, an editing and coaching business that brings in 6 figures a year. In this podcast, I'll discuss the challenges of academia, what academic editing involves, and what life as a freelancer looks like. If you're willing to jump outside your comfort zone, it is possible to find joy, true flexibility, and a profitable and rewarding career as an academic editor. Thanks for listening. Welcome to Leaving Academia, Becoming a Freelance Editor. I'm your host, Paulina. Today on the podcast, I am sharing something a little bit different. My friend Jen Polk and I have recently started a YouTube live series that we're calling Jen and Paulina Talk Life After Academia. And we are going live on YouTube every Monday at noon Eastern. And in that series, we are just getting together to chat very informally about all things related to leaving academia. What do you do after? How do you make the decision to leave? And all of that jazz. If you have spent any time at all in the alt-ac, post-ac career space, you have probably heard of Jen Polk. She has been around in this space since around 2013. She is a fabulous career coach who works with PhDs, postdocs, professors, academics who are thinking about leaving academia but don't really have an idea what they want to do. Or maybe they have an idea what they want to do, but they're not sure how to move forward with it. And her business, From PhD to Life, is her coaching practice and her group program where she works with folks in this space. I am very grateful to be connected to Jen. She is really a giant in this space. She has had a long history on Twitter, had many, many followers on Twitter, now is mainly on LinkedIn, and is just a really lovely, kind, and fun person to know. And I'm grateful to our mutual friend, Tori Waber, who's also lovely and a wonderful coach in this post-ac space, for connecting us. So today we are talking about this question of, is there still a stigma around leaving academia? And so, of course, in that question, there is an implication that there has always been a stigma around leaving academia. And we talk a little bit about our own experiences. And then we discuss whether or not that stigma still exists. Has it changed? Is it getting better? Based on what we hear and observe from people in our respective programs. And then we close the conversation by giving some tips on how you might reframe that stigma, how you might push through that stigma if you're somebody who's thinking about leaving academia and you're nervous about what are people going to think about you. Does this mean you're a failure? And all of those, the voice that's inside so many of our heads and telling us that we can't do this thing that we think might actually make us happy. So I hope you enjoy this episode with Jen. Please get in touch with either of us. Leave a comment on the episode below. If you have questions you want us to answer, if you have thoughts, if you disagree, if you agree, whatever, we'd love to hear from you. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at Acadia Editing. And Jen's YouTube channel is From PhD to Life. Please be sure to subscribe to both of those so you get all of our episodes and conversations, and tune in Mondays at noon Eastern on YouTube. So I'm Paulina Cossette, and this is my friend Jen Polk. And we are here to launch we had our soft launch a couple weeks ago, and now we are having our official launch of Jen and Paulina talk about life after academia. And hopefully some folks will show up to ask some questions and all that. Oh, those are cool. What's new, Jen? What's new since we chatted a couple weeks ago?
Oh, you're putting me on the spot. Hello. Yeah, okay, brain mush. One thing that's new is so every month I do workshop for folks in my program. So we at the end of the month, so on Friday, we did a workshop on participating with purpose, which is about so you're going to events, a conference, some sort of meeting, whatever. What do you do before, during, and after to make sure that you get stuff out of it? Yeah, so that was a good discussion. I'm always nervous in the summer. Are people going to come to these things? Because attendance dips a little bit, but nope, 5 people came. So I was like, oh, phew. So that's new.
Yeah, I had my 3-day training a couple weeks ago. It was like mid-July, and I was wondering about that because I'd never run it. It's my free training that I use to promote my program, and I'd never run it in the summer before. And I thought I didn't know if more people would come because they're not teaching classes, or fewer people would come because it was the summer. And it turned out to be almost exactly the same turnout as my May one. So I was like, okay, well, no difference.
Interesting. Like people have asked me that before, like, other business owners. I think there can be an assumption that, things go quiet in the summer, or it depends on the business, right? Like what's the trends? And my trend, like for folks that are already joined the program, like I've experienced, it's not always, but it can be like lower attendance in the summer months. But otherwise, other than that, I haven't necessarily noticed any trends. So, so I'm always interested in experiences other people have.
Yeah. So speaking of experiences, we decided we were going to chat today about is there still a stigma attached to leaving academia? And I think you and I, folks like us, we are in sort of a unique position because we're not in academia anymore, but we do talk with a lot of people who are or who have left recently. And so that gives us access to a lot of different, albeit anecdotal evidence, but evidence nonetheless, of what people are experiencing, and from a lot of different places, sometimes even all over the world. So what do you think? What was your experience like with stigma when you were leaving academia? And then maybe we can chat about, what we think it's like today.
Yeah, and I think for folks listening who maybe are younger generation than us, younger in age or younger in experience in the academy, the question implies that there at least was for us a stigma. And yes, there definitely experienced it. And in my case, like leaving academia for me was not continuing on after completing my PhD. So I didn't do anything else in academia after that. And I very much felt that I was letting the side down by not pursuing things, because it very much felt to me like this was what I was supposed to do, this was the thing that I was good for. And yeah, it was. So yes, I mean, the short answer is yes. I very much felt that stigma. I could go on and on and on. Let me stop there. Yes, is the answer. I felt it. What about you?
Yeah, for me, there definitely was. And it was the reason that it took me probably 3 or 4 years to actually make the decision to leave. And I very vividly remember, finishing the year that I was finishing my dissertation, basically my department had cut me off on funding. I think I had a 4-year fellowship. They funded me a fifth year to teach my own courses. And they said, that's it. We don't have any more money for you. Sorry. And so I was like, well, shit, I got to get my act together. And so I had a visiting assistant professor position in my sixth year when I was defending my dissertation. And then I remember thinking about like, okay, what do I do when I go on the market? How do I, decide where I want to work? And I was applying to all these places that I didn't want to live, these cities that I didn't want to live, the schools I didn't want to be at. And my committee was saying, well, that's just what you do. You just go and then maybe you'll like it. And I'm like, I am not, there is no universe in which I will enjoy living at this place. And well, you just go and then you can change jobs. Okay. And so I just did what they said because I trusted them. And then when I tried it and I hated it, and I was miserable, they would say, well, if you leave academia, you can never come back. Like it was this fear mongering and, oh, well, what else are you going to do? You're not going to be able to get another job anywhere else, And so I think there's absolutely this stigma and this implication that doing something else is failure. And if you leave, you can never come back. And so it was absolutely present, and to the point that I couldn't talk to anybody about it. You couldn't realistically talk to anybody about leaving.
It's it's so weird. So I finished my PhD in 2012, and that same year, later in the year, I started a blog from PhD to Life, which is still there, although I don't blog as much anymore. But my website, right? That's when I started it. I think it was December 12th, 2012. I'm aging myself. And
Well, I'm the
I had
same
a
age,
moment.
so
Yeah. So good. I had a moment of decision. It's so strange to talk about this now, but it was a real issue for me back then was should I put my name on this thing? Because I had a blog, a different blog like for years prior to that. I was a bit of an early blogger back on the internet, and I didn't have my full name on it. I wasn't like it wasn't necessarily like difficult to figure out who I was, but I didn't like have my full name. But this one, there was a moment of should I put my full name on it, and like I hemmed and hawed, and eventually and did decide to put my name on it. Anyways, I'm getting to my point, which is that one of my friend colleague peoples from I think he was in a neighboring department, not anyways, but same basic field. His comment to me was that it was very brave of me to do that. And like I mean, not really, but like that was the sense back then, right? And what was I blogging about? I was just blogging about what I was up to, what I was doing, what I was thinking, nothing salacious or anything. It was just like, what I was thinking in terms of my career. But the perception, at least from him, but I think it was not just him, was that this was brave to talk about it because exactly as you said, there was no one to even talk about it. It was a taboo subject, which, gets to stigma, right? It's taboo. I have more to say. Let me pause. Yeah.
well, and I think, this is maybe a getting into a subject for another day, but I think that so much of that stigma is intentionally perpetuated in the academy because it serves to keep people trapped. Like if you are terrified to leave, you will continue to put up with the low pay and the growing working requirements, right? And the all of the toxic behavior and all that. And so it feel like looking back, I think in many ways, like I know that my mentors and advisors cared about me and they were just kind of parroting these statements that they had heard over and over and over. But then when you look at it at a systemic level, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like now that I've seen the purpose that that stigma serves, it seems very clear that at the administrator systemic level that it is intended to, or it's serving this function of keeping people trapped.
Yeah, I mean, it serves a function, and it doesn't have to be intentional. Like, I don't think that any particular individuals have to be, sitting there plotting about our demise, like how to ruin young people's lives. I mean, maybe some of them are thinking that, but I think in general, I don't think most people are thinking that way. but it's in the water as a metaphor. Like I remember, I mean, the fact that I still remember these anecdotes says something. So this one is there was a professor. I never interacted with her formally because we kind of were like we crossed we crossed disciplines in a certain subject. Anyways, blah 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 blah. But like I knew who she was and she knew who I was, not in any kind of sinister way. And we were chatting once, and one of her former students had been a instructor of mine at my undergraduate institution. He was like an instructor, lecturer, whatever, adjunct, you'd say in American parlance. And the comment she made to me was that it was such a shame that he'd never gotten a job. It was such a shame. Like I remember her saying those words. It was such a shame. But like she was talking to me, somebody who had literally been in 2 or 3 different classes of his, like obviously he was getting paid for that. But we both understood what she meant, which was that he'd never gotten a tenure track position. But also, the both of us knew at that point that he'd recently been hired full time for a Canadian government. I'm from Canada. We were in Canada for a government department of some sort doing sort of related work. I forget which agency it was. It was either spy or military or something. Anyways, whatever. Russian studies. That's what it was. Russian history. That's the relevance here. But yeah, like part of the context was that he did have a job, but that's not like the job that she meant, right? It's such a shame that he'd never gotten a job. So it's just like little like it's throwaway comments like that, right? Like it was her and I establishing like mutual connection. It wasn't anything more than that, other than like we kind of know each other, even if we don't actually know each other. Anyways, that's my point. It's such a shame. Like at the moment, it's a throwaway line, but you think later, you're like, oh yeah, what is this narrative, right? A failure when a person outside of this context would look at this guy who's been like teaching university classes, for a few years, like students who look up to him, ask him for letters of reference. Now he's gotten like a full-time permanent job, for the government. Like that's cool, right? And yet it's such a shame. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it's like the tenure track job, which leads to tenure and full, is the benchmark against which everyone is measured. And it's kind of arbitrary. Like, why is that the gold standard? Why isn't it like, oh, you get to live in a place that you enjoy living, or you're near your family, or your spouse is happy, or whatever. Like, you have all these other needs in your life besides just the place that pays you a salary. Why do we not account for the complexities of our human needs? And instead, we're all persuaded to measure ourselves against this basically arbitrary benchmark. But I wonder, when you interact with people in your program now, so 10, what are we, 14 years later? I got my PhD in 2013, so I'm same boat as you. God, that does make me feel older though. Now, 10 plus years later, what do you hear from folks? Do you feel like the stigma is reduced? Are people just not caring as much about it? What is your sense of what's going on now?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. And part of it is that I'm not sure what the vibes are these days. And it's in part because I tend to interact with folks that have already decided that they want to head out. So that doesn't mean that that the narrative, capital N, doesn't seep through, because it does. But I'm not necessarily like, there's a lot of people who aren't talking to me, I guess, is my question, right? Like, what about the people who aren't talking to me? What's going on in their minds? And I don't know. I mean, literally, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. I have a couple of clients who joined the program, but they didn't join the program until they had tenure. So I'm like, oh, that's interesting. I mean, is that just like a coincidence that has nothing to do with anything? Or does it say that there was like a milestone that they saw as important and valuable to achieve that the outside world doesn't give a shit about? But like for them, right? Like within this narrative of success, they needed to do that. Or another client who, he was out. He knew kind of emotionally, psychologically, he was totally out. He didn't know practically what that meant yet, but he was very much still aiming to publish his book, get that contract, he did, and go up for full, which he did and got it. So like, but those were important to him, which yeah, they had nothing to do directly anyways with this next career move, but kind of closing that chapter. Anyways, I don't know. I don't know. It's like the answer. I don't know, Paulette. What do you think?
So I had a similar experience about people getting tenure. And I should say there are some folks watching. So if anybody wants to, give your own thoughts on this, just, add in the chat what you think, if there's still a stigma about leaving or not.
Did I just call you Paulette? Did I
You did. I
collapse your first name and last name?
Look, life is hard these days. So I try to
Sorry.
assume the best intentions and not worry about minor things.
I'm just collapsing.
Everybody does it. Yeah, my last name. Yeah. Anyway, when I started my program, I thought that most people who would join would be like I was, where I was on the tenure track. I was very close to getting tenure. And I just had a child and I was burned out and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I thought that those would be the people who would join, or maybe like people who are recent PhDs who've been on the market and not landed a job and need to do something else. But what I found, and what I continue to find after the last couple of years, is that most people who join the program are people who've gotten tenure, either recently gotten tenure or they've recently gotten full. And it's like they we keep our heads down and we work and we work and we work to meet this goal. And then finally we achieve it and we come up for air and we look around and we go, that's it. This is it. This is what I've spent a decade plus working for. And they realize like, okay, I've ticked the box. Now it's okay for me to leave.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I want to shift a little bit here, because going back to the original question of, is there a stigma? I had an interaction, it's been years now, but where I realized there's a wrinkle to this, at least in the minds of some people, where it's fine if you leave academia, and sometimes that sentiment is because you suck. So like you were never going to make it anyways, but like that's not what I mean. Like let's put that kind of negative sentiment aside, but like no, it's great you leave, I support that, legitimate, think that's awesome, that's better for the world. Like I think that thought exists, but I can't, right? It's not okay for me to leave. Like that am I making sense?
Yeah, like when we look at other people, we look at them with a compassionate eye and we think, yeah, you're unhappy. I get that. You want to live near family, whatever it is. And so I fully support you doing that. But if it were me, that feels scarier or impossible.
Yeah, or like, who am I? Like, I can't do that. Like,
yeah,
that's
failure. I
failure.
think self-doubt is a big part of it too. When people come into my program, they often, or even like when I do these free trainings, these webinars, one of the questions that comes up is, how can I start an editing or coaching business and not let anybody know what I'm doing? Like, because I talk about, well, you can post on LinkedIn, or we talk about how you can kind of spruce up your LinkedIn profile to say that you're an academic coach or an editor. And you can also say, well, I'm also an associate professor of whatever. Like you can be both. But people are like, but I don't want my colleagues to know, like, because somehow the implication is if you have time to have a life outside of your job, you're somehow not doing enough for your job. Or, oh, maybe it's a signal that you are going to leave at some point. Or so for me, that says there is still a stigma from the system side.
That's such a great point. Paulina. Say it in a sentence. Yeah, and I definitely see that and the LinkedIn is such a great example of, oh no, I can't. Sometimes it doesn't even matter like what they would change it to. They can't make any changes on LinkedIn. Like it can't even go on there and do stuff because they're so nervous, afraid of the consequences of other people. They mean like their department colleagues or their dean or whoever would then notice their activity on LinkedIn and have thoughts and that there would be consequences for them. And I have had people online who push back at me to tell me, no, actually, they are doing this. Because I'm like, really? I mean, are your colleagues actually like, do they give a shit? And I've had more than one person say, no, they do, they are. There will be negative consequences for me. I'm like, okay, I mean, sure, I don't know. I believe you. Man, some people have too much time on their hands. But
Yeah, I
yeah, I
was
mean, it,
Yeah, this is a different kind of stigma, but I think kind of related to what you're saying is that, there's a woman I was talking with, she wrote a basically a memoir about her life, and she was a professor, and she said that as soon as that came out and she published that, because it was a non-academic book, her colleagues suddenly shunned her and treated her as though she was worthless because she had published this non-academic book. And so I think that that's a similar kind of fear, that people are afraid if somebody finds out that I'm unhappy, that I'm thinking of leaving, that I want to move home to be near my aging parents, that I whatever, they're going to judge me and treat me differently, and I'm going to lose my preferences for teaching and blah blah blah. But I also just recently, I would say, and maybe this will give folks some hope. I have had a sense of people in my last couple of webinars this summer who are kind of saying there is a stigma, people are going to judge me, and I don't care anymore. They're kind of like realizing I'm fed up. I have given everything to this institution that has treated me like garbage and is at risk of cutting my program at any moment and telling me by email. And so why am I doing this? Why do I care so much what somebody else thinks of me when they treat me so terribly?
yeah, I mean, that's like flipping it around and saying like, okay, you judge me, bitches, go ahead. Like I'm out. I refuse to buy into anymore your definition of success, your narrative of what is valuable. And I have my own, which is important to me. And I'm going to go and pursue relationships, broadly defined, and projects broadly defined with people who value the same things that I do. And it's not going to be you guys anymore. And that's tough for you because I'm awesome. That's
Exactly. Yeah.
like in the short term, might be some uncomfortableness, but like long term, you're like, I don't care what you think because I don't value your opinion anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can find meaning outside of higher ed, traditional higher ed.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you said this, I thought this was kind of interesting. You said that that people who come to you have already decided that they're going to leave academia. And for me, it's probably more people are, maybe it's half and half, but probably more people are thinking they're exploring options. They're learning about how to start a business to see if maybe this is the right fit. But I wonder, maybe we can offer some tips to people watching this. What do you tell people that come to you, mentioning this stigma or, their fear of what are people going to think of me? What are some tips we can offer them to help them move through that?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what we were just talking about is to build up in yourself that new maybe it's not even new, but to give voice to what is important to you, what you value, what is your definition of success, and to build that up so that that can be the thing that grounds you going forward. And yeah, it's funny because my program in general, you can understand my program as like a job search program, but most of it is about figuring out what you want before you can get to actually applying for jobs, right? Like long before you get to writing a resume. So it's actually great for people who haven't yet decided it. Anyways, you asked me a question. Yeah, I think for folks to really take some time and energy to figure out what is important to them. And the more that the more energy that they give to that, the more that they trust and respect themselves in that, the stronger like defenses in a way they'll be able to have with all the shit coming at them from different directions. So practically speaking, sure, self-reflection exercises, other kinds of stuff like that, but also practically speaking is building your community. Go and talk to people, go and interact with other types of people, be in communication with them so that they take up more kind of space in your mind and the academics take a smaller and smaller amount of space in your mind. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Which is the value of your program because you're providing a community to do just that, right?
Well, but yours as well. I think,
Yes.
I think there's two things that stood out to me in what you said is, what you said earlier that, oh, you got tenure and nobody outside academia gives a shit. And I think that's exactly right. Like nobody cares what you do. You're a professor. Great. Good for you. I'm a plumber, whatever. Like outside academia, nobody cares. It's just a thing. Like, your favorite color is blue or whatever. It's just a thing about you. And what I love about what the work that you do with people is that you help them figure out what is it that will truly make them happy. Because I think so many of us were, and this is absolutely true for my journey, is I was completely miserable. I hated it. I was constantly trapped between that stigma of if you leave, you can never come back. You're going to be a failure. What else? Who are you if you're not Professor Paulina? What is your identity if you're not this person that we've robotically trained you to be? And I didn't know how to answer that on my own. And I got to my breaking point and I left and I was completely lost. And it was spray and pray, it was like, what jobs can I apply to? I'm going to be a clerk at the city Bar Harbor town office. And I'm going to, work at this place or work at that, or try to find online remote jobs for, data analysis, whatever. And it was like, I had zero direction. And so what I love about the way that you work with people is you help them peel back the onion to what is it that you love? What is going to make you happy? What is the life that you want? And then how do we build that? What are the jobs that we go after to help you achieve that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a real flip from the way that most people approach it, which is like, oh shit. Okay, what are some basic truths about me? Discipline, degree, maybe location, right? Like, there's a few other things that might circle around there, and that's very quickly determined. Then go search for jobs, and it's a desperation mode, and it's how can I slot myself into what they describe that they need? And my flip is stop. Yeah, as you say, what is the onion? let's, let's unpack the onion, mixing metaphors. And then once you have a much more fleshed out kind of description in your own words about what you want, let's go and find very selectively opportunities that match up with what you want. And then you can put together a strategic whiz bang application package to make a case for it. But yeah, it's a flip. It's the flip.
And I think in the work that I do with people, I'm helping them see that you can do all the same work you've always done, but in a context where you're actually appreciated and you're paid well and you get to be your own boss and you can do the editing and the advising and the delivering feedback on writing and, emotional support sometimes for, struggling writers or grad students or whatever, but in an environment that you build. So you intentionally construct it in a way that it's healthy, that you're giving that emotional labor and that support in a way that's healthy for you, for the client, and you're getting paid way better than what your institution was probably paying you.
And what you just pointed out, the context, I mean, that looms so large. I mean, that's all of this, right? Is that academics get fixated on the context and about staying in that context and not taking a step back and saying, oh, I'm wearing 15 different hats in this context. Maybe I could like pick my top 3 hats and like look around at different contexts, right? Like, bring my hat bag with me and go somewhere else where I'd be valued and appreciated and leave all those other 12 hats on the side of the road.
Yeah, I think too, maybe for final thoughts here, I would say you could, if you're in this position where you are, you're unhappy, but you feel that pressure of what are people going to think, or, they're going to judge me, or what are the consequences going to be if I take the first step to see what this might look like for me to leave academia. You could do what I did, which is get to your breaking point and then freak out and say, I have no more F's left to give. I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. Blah. Or you could be intentional and, work with somebody like Jen, or do informational interviews, talk to people who've left, see what they're like. I think most of us who've left are very happy to talk to other folks who are thinking about leaving, because we know what it's like to be in your shoes. But, explore, dream, imagine, what could my life look like? What realistically would I love to do? What could I do? What are other people doing who've made this step? And remember that the people who are judging you for leaving are the first ones who are going to just cut your program and send you a polite form letter. And so why do we worry about what they think if they care so little about us?
Yeah, indoors. Stamp. That sounds yep. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Paulina.
This was fun. I hope this is helpful for folks. Please tune in next week, same time, same great station. And let us know on LinkedIn in the comments if you have any questions, things you want to hear us talk about, and we will indulge you as far as we can. So good to see you, Jen.
You too. Bye.
If you're unhappy in academia and you think you might be a good editor or writing coach, check out my course, Becoming an Academic Editor. This digital course is paired with a 12-week group coaching program to support you through your decision to leave academia or not, and to start building a profitable and rewarding academic editing business. Learn more by going to acadiaediting.com/become an editor. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time.